Hi, my name is Abby Maria.
Hi, my name is Saul.
Wendell Holland.
Brandon Donlin. Shaheen, not Shaheen.
Hey everybody, this is Mike Gabler, the Alligabler, coming to you live on Survivor Squared.
Survivor Squared.
Survivor Squared.
Survivor Squared.
Survivor Squared. Survivor Squared.
We are back live once again, second day in a row, where we are breaking the glass on season 2 of Survivor Squared, where we treat Survivor and other reality shows as if it is a sport. And what do you do in sports? You always compare the greatest to ever play. Is Michael Jordan or LeBron the best NBA player? Well, today, we're breaking down every winner from all 50 seasons of Survivor and debating who's the best, who's the worst, and who's stuck in between. On the last episode yesterday, my co-host, my ride or die, we broke down all 50 seasons of Survivor. That is live on the YouTube page where you're watching this right now. And we are live right now, so you can jump into the comment section and agree, disagree with me, just like you did with me and Bailey yesterday, because I'm also bringing on someone to help me go through my personal winners rankings that's going to disagree with arguably all 50 positions. And he is a man that invited me onto his channel many a time. I'm very excited to have him on for the first time on Survivor Squared. He's been in these YouTube Survivor streets forever, and there is no better voice to break apart my will and confidence in my own rankings than the man I'm about to bring on. Please welcome in the host of Survivor Specialist himself, Phil. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tony. Glad to be here. I am one of the people who was raging when I saw your original winner rankings posted, and part of me was dying inside. I had to say to myself, he's just a boy. He's just a boy. He doesn't know yet. He's so new to Survivor. He doesn't know all of the background stuff. I told you when it happened because I had you on the show not long after. And as everybody knows, I'm a huge Todd Herzog stan. We'll get to that probably way sooner than we should. But I told you, I said, it's nice to have a different perspective because for so long, I've been doing this podcast for 11 years now. And when you've been doing this podcast for this long and you're on the message boards before that and all that, it gets very groupthinky. I mean, there's so many opinions where you say, how did that become the opinion? And it was fun to see yours because you putting John Cochran at number 1 is one of the hottest takes you could probably have. And I don't know if I'm supposed to spoil that, but I saw it on your ranking.
Can't spoil the 50 through 1 already.
Well, okay. Well, if you put John Cochran at number 1, it's like the rest of the internet wants to kill you. And I actually think that's probably enough to get people to keep watching because it's like, dude, how the hell do you put John Cochran there? So anyway.
Well, I'm happy you brought up that you have like the groupthink rankings in the message boards, because when I was even going through my Survivor watch along, trying to watch every season, and every week I'm throwing recaps on TikTok, on Instagram, there was a lot of people, like I was coming in hot with hot takes immediately, and there was a lot of people that were just arguing with me because, and their basis behind the argument was, well, the internet says this about that Survivor season or that Survivor player. I don't care. Like, I understand you might care, and that might be what you've agreed with all of your friends, and that's okay if you can back it up with facts. Like, you know, this winner did this, so they're higher because of X, Y, and Z, and we're going to go through all the ramifications of that. But I'm sitting here with my own reasoning and my own reasons why, and I'm not kind of blinded by the way the rest of the world thinks, because coming in truly with virgin eyes, I had no idea what the rest of the world thinks. So I'm not trying to be like a Stephen A. Smith making a hot take that's going to get me a headline type figure, but I am coming in here with what I truly believe about these seasons and about these winners, and my stance on them remains the same. So we're going to go through them one by one, number 50 to number 1. There will be ones we agree on, ones we disagree on, but either way, that's what we're here. We're ripe for debate. And if you're watching this live on YouTube with us right now, you can leave us comments. We can see those comments and interact with you as we go. If you're watching this on Spotify or Apple Music, join us on YouTube every single Thursday morning at 9 a.m. Pacific time. We'll be doing this. Me and my co-host Bailey Buffs will be breaking down Survivor, The Traitors, everything else in the reality TV world every Thursday, 9 a.m. Pacific. And I'm excited to see Survivor 51. But before we get into the rankings of 50, Phil, we were together during most of Survivor season 50. We were together at the live finale and everything that happened there. It's been a long break since then, and season 51 is around the corner in a few short weeks here. Are you like, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being Survivor season 50, how excited are you for the debut of 51?
So it's a weird question, right? Because how can you be more excited than for an all returning player season, first one in 10 seasons,
Mhm.
all of this great stuff. There was so much hype around the cast last year. I will say though, it has been nice not having to put out 50 content all the time. I mean, we were putting out 4 or 5 episodes a week last season or last summer because we were doing everything you need to know about, defining episodes. We were getting into cast breakdowns, winner potential, all this different stuff. What I like about 51 is it's just going to be new. Like, we're not
Yeah.
sitting here debating who's going to be on the cast. I know that you could probably go find that information anywhere. I've seen most of the cast. They mean nothing to me. But, you sit here and you look at it and you say, okay, this won't be as big as 50, but there's also something refreshing. There's not as much pressure. We probably won't get as many trolls in the comments just trying to ruin the season for everybody.
Yeah.
I was pretty much narrowed down to Aubry, Ozzy, and Sari by like episode 6 last year, just because everybody was commenting that one of those 3 people won. Look, I know
Yeah.
that there's stuff out there, but you get the people who don't actually care about Survivor, who come in and just want to ruin the good time during the returning player seasons. You don't really get that in the newbie seasons. And I'm also excited to see
Yeah.
what the open era is going to look like. So honestly, I'm probably like an 8, because to go to a 10,
Wow.
that would mean I'd have to be thinking about it. And right now I'm really not, but I think I'm an 8 because the cast is probably going to get announced within the week, maybe 2
Yeah.
weeks. And I'm
Yeah.
excited to see that cast and just talk about a bunch of newbies and have a normal preseason and a normal regular season. And, it was tough as a podcaster too, because a lot of people wanted to talk about 50. And
Yeah.
I felt a little bit of pressure of like, okay, who am I reaching out to? When do I reach out? How's this going to go? Like, I don't want to slight anybody. And because I
Yeah.
know how it feels to get slighted. That's not great. I feel like with this season, it's like, hey, the demand is way lower. And I kind of like that feeling. I'm not going to lie.
No, I'm excited too because we started this podcast with Survivor 49. The first season of Survivor that I watched live was season 48. So this is really like everything was pushing to 50. Even when I was watching 48, everything was pushing to 50. And that happened. That's over. Now we're moving on to a so-called new era, the open era. No idea what that means, but I am excited as a new person in the Survivor world to really start anew with everybody. Like everyone's on equal ground here. We're not trying to plan like, oh, they're going to pull X, Y, and Z to put them on 50. We're here. 51 could take us anywhere it wants to go. And I'm excited that the most pessimistic Survivor fan I know in you is an 8 on the scale of excitement. Yeah. That makes me happy. That gets me even more excited, Phil.
Well, and again, it comes down to, I just feel like we actually are going to get something new. One of my favorite things, and I've watched this show since season 2 live. So like, again, when we do these winner rankings, it's a very different perspective. I give a lot more emphasis to first time playing, changing the game, things like that. I've watched pretty much the first 20 seasons. I've watched probably about 5 or 6 times each at least. Because I really love, that was like when it was really like my thing. And I always liked watching how Survivor would mildly change. I talked about this on another podcast not too long ago, but season 1 is just Survivor. Season 2 is a repeat, but with better production value. Season 3 is a tribe swap. Season 4 is a different kind of tribe swap. Season 5, they do the fake merge. You can just keep going. And there's these little wrinkles throughout. And in the new era, I felt like they just got complacent. And I felt like the little wrinkles were more of, let's blow the game up and make it a production show. And I don't want a production show. I want a player show. And that'll come up in my rankings too. I value people who beat other players more than I value people who beat production. That is something that I really emphasize in my rankings. And so I feel like 51, the open era has to be better than the new era. It has to, because it's not that the new era was a total wash. There's some great seasons in there, 46, 47. I personally love season 43, but there's also so many bad repetitive seasons and it just starts to feel the same. Them acknowledging that they're moving away from that. They've never done that in the history of Survivor, except for going into 41. That makes me feel good.
Hey, that makes me feel good too. And it makes me feel good to now break out the 50 best winners, the 50 winners in Survivor history and rank them number 50 to number 1, because now I'm excited, man. You got my juices flowing. I'm ready to go. Excited to see where the winner of 51 ends up on this ranking, but we're not quite there yet. We're going to go through these again, slide by slide, just like we did the ranking every season show. If you're listening audio only, I'll be reading them off as we go. There's going to be about 8 at a time here. And then Phil and I are going to debate the slides, and Phil will make fun of me the whole entire way. But if you do math really fast, you understand that if you do 8 at a time, that doesn't add up to 50. So the first slide, the worst slide, is just 2 winners. And they are the 2 worst winners in Survivor history to me. And I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I think it's relatively normal to have Chris from Edge of Extinction at number 50 and my man, the Alligabler, at number 49. Those are my bottom two winners in Survivor history. 50, it's not Chris's fault, but he was voted out of Survivor. And to me, there was nothing Chris could have done, even though he comes back, plays excellent for the 10 days he's back on the island. He throws himself in fire in one of the best champion making moves in Survivor history to take out the big dog Rick Devens. It was an excellent finish for Chris. And yes, he probably deserved the win if you don't count out the fact that he was voted out. And then as for Alligabler, to me, it was I hate that technique. And we'll get into the Sandras of the world. I do despise the anyone but me technique. And Alligabler, to me, was the epitome of the new era version of that. But Phil, these are my bottom two. Do you have any disagreements with these bottom two?
No, so we just did our winner rankings in this offseason. For anybody who hasn't checked that out, we did 5 episodes, 10 people in each episode. It was myself, Blake, Will's freaking algorithm, which was atrocious. So get ready for that, guys. If you want to listen to a podcast, the algorithm ranked Parvati at like 47, and he didn't think there was a problem with the algorithm. And then John and McKenna did a combined list, and we added them all together. And Chris was easy number 50. Gabler came in at 47. I personally rank Gabler a little bit higher. Here's my thing with Chris. Chris is awesome. Chris actually has a lot of repeat winner potential. If he were to play another season of Survivor, I think Chris could be the second or the third 2-time winner in Survivor history because I think people would undervalue him. He proved what he can do on the challenge. If you haven't seen his winning challenge season. So it's not Chris's fault, but yeah, it's easy to say, okay, 49 winners haven't been voted out of Survivor. The 50th one has. Okay, great. That's easy.
Yeah.
I give Gabler a little bit more credit. I only ranked him at 43. I'm probably even a little low there. I think on a rewatch, I might move him up a little bit. I always say this, and this comes with Gabler and Bob. How many people over the age of 50 have played Survivor? And they all lose. And so my biggest thing is you can sit here and you can complain about the way that Gabler plays the game. Or you can complain about the way that Bob plays the game. Gabler cannot play the game of anybody else. He has to play a different game because there might be better players in your mind or in anybody's mind that are over 50 and play a better Survivor style than Gabler, but they all lose. Gabler won, and there's so few ways to win as an older male and an older female, and that's not the case for these younger castaways. Just look at Chris Underwood. He was able to lose and still win, and he beats Julie Rosenberg at that final tribal council, who is an older woman. It's harder to win the game that way. So I give Gabler a little bit more credit, but I do understand the low ranking of him. I also think that the edit does not do him any justice. It's so Jesse focused. It's so Carla focused. That does end up hurting him. But I personally love season 43 because we get one of the most unpredictable final threes of all time.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
I never celebrated harder at a win than his win there. And it wasn't anything against Owen or Cassidy. It just felt good to be right and also be like, Survivor actually surprised me.
We do have some comments coming in. Justice for Keith says, I guess the biggest knock against Gabler is that he wanted to take Jesse and Cody to final tribal council. For me, it was absolutely the edit for Gabler, and we're going to get through that with a lot of the lower rankings here. It took a while for Survivor to figure out how to edit certain player types. Like Tina in season 2, no one understands why she wins if you watch that season again, yet you have to listen to the interviews with everyone else off of the island afterwards to say, no, Tina was running everything from behind. They just didn't show it on TV. Gabler is a victim of that in his season because they don't show Gabler really doing anything but sitting under the water and waiting. And that was enough for him to win. But that is my version of the bottom two. And you did mention Bob. I love Bob, and he's not going to come anywhere close to Gabler. And I'm sure we're going to discuss that. But I think our biggest argument is going to come with the next slide, numbers 48 through 41. Number 48 is Sandra, the second time around Heroes and Villains. Number 47 is Chris from Vanuatu. 46 is Tina. 45 is Ethan. 44 is Erica from season 41. 43 is Nick from God damn it, I'm David versus Goliath. 42 is Natalie from Russell's Samoa season, and then 41 is Fabio. We haven't gotten to Todd yet. Phil, are you happy?
No, because you put Chris here, and I have Chris number 2 in my ranking. I have Chris as the 4th greatest Survivor player in the history of the show. and people go at me for that all the time. I personally think Chris Doherty's Vanuatu winning game is the purest version of winning Survivor you will ever see other than Richard Hatch. I think
Oh
what
my
he is able
God.
to accomplish coming out as the overweight middle-aged guy, and by middle-aged, I think he's younger than I am now, but he's the overweight middle-aged guy. He comes out, he can't cross the balance beam. He ends up
Uh-huh.
surviving it, and he creates an alliance, and he understands what Survivor is all about. He's able to overcome being the outcast initially. He's able to overcome the 6-1 female deficit. And people argue
Yep.
any of the men could have done that. No, they couldn't have, because Sarge couldn't do it, and Rory couldn't do it, and Chad couldn't do it. He has no idols, no twists, no advantages, no nothing.
Mhm.
And at Final 7 and Final 5, the two biggest tribal councils of that season for him. He's outnumbered 6-1, and it's the time where he's outnumbered 4-1 by the women. He does not have the immunity necklace on his neck at those tribals, and he still survives them. Yes, he needs to win them at the end, but that's the beauty of
Yep.
bringing Twyla and Scout to the final 3 and Eliza as the 4th person. I think, Chris, look, I disagree with you on Tina. I disagree with you on Sandra Heroes Villains, but Chris Doherty, he plays the most perfect version of an underdog game you can ever play in Survivor history. If he had played a second time, I think that he would be on the Rushmore of Survivor. And I think what's also crazy is if this season didn't come directly after All Stars, people would revere him instead of me making this a hot take. So Chris Doherty is what stands out to me there. And I'm disappointed.
Let's stop right there.
Let's
Let's discuss Chris a little bit deeper here, because you did bring up some good points. I don't believe it's as easy as any man would have been able to come over the 6-1 deficit. I do believe that the last man standing, it was a perfect storm of that 6-woman alliance breaking apart at the right time for him to be there. It took a player to get through those cracks, but the cracks were really forming at the perfect time for him to be there. And when it comes to Chris's victory, like you said, he doesn't have the necklace around him at the 6-1, at the 4-1 tribal council. To me, that I don't see that as a victory by Chris, but as a loss by the women that were in charge, by the loss of the power alliance that was there. It was so easy to take the easy road that each of them looked at each other and said, I need to beat these guys now, and forgot about Chris. And it made him that Gabler technique where he just was lying in the weeds. Don't worry about me, guys. You can take me out next round, which is absolutely a strategy. And it worked in an excellent fashion. But I saw it as just a weak victory overall. And I do believe there were other men in his shoes that could have made that victory just like he did. But I see it more as a loss by the Power Alliance than a win by Chris. And I guess that's why we have the biggest gap in these rankings, where I'm 47 and you're number 2 overall.
And the thing is, if you look at the other men there, Chad was too much of a nothing. He would have never been able to do it. He would have been more of a Tarzan when it all came down to it. If you think about from One World, Sarge was too confrontational. Rory was too confrontational. All the other men are gone before the merge even happens. And the other thing that I think you're not giving Chris credit for here is, yes, it might be a loss by the women, but think about what he did at that final 7. He knew he had no chance with Amy. He had no chance with Leanne. So what does he do? He goes and he makes the alliance with the outcasts. He is the one who is initiating this to Twyla, to Scout, to Eliza. But then what he does is he goes even a step further. After Leanne and Amy are gone, he ensures that he's in the middle of Eliza, Julie, and Twyla and Scout. Now, I think ultimately at that final 5 tribal council, if I'm not mistaken, Eliza also votes out Julie. But like Chris and Eliza are making the decision at that tribal. Plus, I think Twyla probably takes Chris to the end because nobody really respected Scout. Scout's going to take Twyla, so that's the only slip up there. There is so much strategizing that is going on there. There's such an understanding of the game. We have seen so many people play Survivor be outnumbered 6-1 or 7-1 or 8-1, whatever it is, even 7-2. Yeah. And they see it and they get a little bit further, but they can't get all the way over the hump. And most of the players who are getting over that hump and almost winning and still not winning are people who have idols at their disposal, extra votes, all these different things. I think the way Chris plays the game, it's so unbelievably social. He knows when to take a step back. He knows when to take a step forward. He understands what his biggest weaknesses are. Nah, man, like I said, if you were asking me, he can't be on the Rushmore because he's only played once. But if you were saying 4 best players in Survivor history, I would put him there at number 4. And I'd be carving his statue, but it would be like on a little miniature mountain next to Mount Rushmore. So
I'm gonna get you a Chris Daughtry fan club T-shirt. I'm gonna get that specially made
He's
for your
going to the
birthday.
event in Orlando this year. I don't know if you saw that. It's the first time he's appearing in like 10 years, and I just moved out of Florida to come back to LA. I'm pissed.
It's a shame you can't meet your hero. That's why. But is there anyone else on this list? You mentioned Sandra that sticks out that you have a lot higher. Obviously not the 47-2, but some of them. I think it's pretty consensus that Fabio and Natalie are pretty low. And I don't have much to defend those games. I think Fabio winning as much immunity challenges does boost him up a little bit. And I do believe Natalie, social-wise, played enough to win her season because of how much everyone hated Russell. So I'll never put Natalie at the bottom of the list. Nick never really impressed me, and neither did Erica. I don't think they really showed why Erica was an important character in her season. It was much more focused on other players. And then as for 45 and 46, I understand they're two of the GOATs, two of the original winners, but Ethan, to me, did nothing during his season but just survive the bigger dogs going out. And I'm always going to say that Colby deserved to win. But Sandra is probably the one that gets me the biggest amount of guff from this section of the list.
It's very funny. So, yeah, no arguments on Fabio. Natalie White, I have ranked 49. Nick, I have 33, but like, look, the difference between 33 and 43 in reality isn't that big of a gap, considering it's like, okay, we're talking just like, what's your little preference that's going to move somebody up. Erica, I'm in total agreement with. Ethan is one of my all-time favorites, but I rank him 40th. Sandra, and I'm going to talk about Sandra before Tina here. Sandra's so fascinating because Sandra came in at our number 9 as a collective list. Okay, so as a collective list, I had her at 16. I think the lowest ranking she was somewhere in the 20s by somebody, but somebody else had her at 2. Sandra's is so interesting to me because it is a winner playing against some non-winners who manages to win. And I think that she is probably, what I learned from doing our winner ranking is Sandra's Heroes versus Villains winner season, I can't think of the word, is the most polarizing season in the history of the show. Her win
I'd
is
agree
so
with that.
polarizing. So many people, when we ranked her in the top 10, couldn't believe that we had her there. It was pathetic. Our list was a sham, blah, 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 blah. I don't really care about what those people say. Go make your own podcast or make your own list. That's all I want you to do. Just make your own list. Nobody will make it. They just tell you yours is wrong. And then they give their criteria, but they don't rank them. So Sandra, though, I think is so fascinating because watching that live, we never thought there could be a 2-time winner. Because of what happened in All-Stars. We never, ever thought that there could be a 2-time winner. They don't show her game early on, but she plays, what I find most impressive about Sandra, and I think it's what pisses you off, she plays the exact same game twice, and she wins both times because of it. And that, to me, is just insane. It's like when you have Matt Stafford throwing a Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, because you're a sports podcast, right? So I'm going to have to say this. When you have him throwing to Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, you're sitting there and you're like, Puka Nacua has been thrown to 16 times and he has 15 catches. And it's the same route over and over. But you keep letting him do it. That's Sandra Diaz-Twine. So that's why I rank her higher. I understand the arguments for putting her lower. Her edit is atrocious. But I have her at 16. So a pretty big gap. You can rebut to that. And then I have to talk about Tina and then we can move on.
Well, yeah,
moving on.
I fully understand the winner winning against non-winners is a huge. The only reason we have another 2-time winner is because it was a season of all winners. Otherwise, we just saw in 50, if you've won before, you're going to be a target at some point during the season. It's a target that you can't get away from, and yet Sandra did it so early on in arguably what people believe the best season in Survivor history, with the most eyes on them, heroes versus villains. What an actual theme! Everything's going right. Russell comes in and destroys it. But you said at the very beginning of this that you like to rank players based on what they did against players and not production. Sandra versus the games of Russell and Parvati, to me, just does not even come close to standing up. And yes, Russell was hated, but Parvati, to me, should have won that season. And she was only disparaged because she sat next to Russell for the entire time, and no one could believe that, well, she was a part of Russell, so we hate her as well. Sandra was the outsider coming in because no one thought of her as a threat. And Russell brought them both, Parvati and Sandra, there because he thought no one's going to vote for a 2-time winner. It was not Sandra's game that got her the victory. It was the hatred of Russell and therefore Parv that got Sandra the victory. So that's why I have her as low as this one, because I believe you put Courtney in that seat, you put any one of the other tag-alongs in that seat, they win heroes versus villains as well. That's why I have her right next to Chris Daughtry.
How dare you call Courtney a tag-along? Courtney, the
100% a tag-along. 100% a tag-along.
Here's the thing, though, with Sandra. She does one thing Parvati and Russell do not do. And this is a mistake. And I've been rewatching the seasons in order for our Patreon. And we're up to Heroes, Healers, Hustlers. every controversial win, there is one thing that the winner does. Natalie White does it. Erica
Yep.
does it. Sandra does it. She's nice to the people who are being voted out. Ben Driebergen does it, right? The people who
Yep.
are being voted out, even if you're getting them, even if you're the one who's casting the vote to vote them out, even if she's calling Rupert a stupid ass in her voting confessional to get him out of the game, she's still treating them as humans. One of the
Yeah.
biggest mistakes you see runner-ups make throughout Survivor history, whether it's Aubry, whether it's Chrissy, whether it's Parvati in this season, there's no effort to actually have discussions with the people who aren't in your alliance that are going out of the
Mhm.
game. That's why Sandra ends up winning it. So I give her credit for that. Personally, too, and this is just a side note, just so that the Parv stands come for me on another channel, because I have my channel. I've done it on Survivor Now. I try to do it everywhere I go so that they know to come find me. I think that Parvati's Heroes vs. Villains game is one of the most overrated games in the history of the show, with one main reason why. If Russell does not do what he does to Tyson, Parvati is done and goes nowhere on that season. I know she makes the great move at Final 10. She obviously has the relationship with Amanda already, but I do think that there's such a hatred for Russell in this community that we overlook the fact that if Russell didn't do what he did in the Tyson episode, Parvati's whole season doesn't happen. And so that's a big thing for me. I know we're going a little long on this slide. I won't be as heated in the 30s. So if you want to talk about Tina real quick, I can just do that.
Well, I do want to say, to wrap up Sandra, justice for Keith says that Sandra knows all she really needed was the 5 hero votes, and she goes after him. That is very much true. This is not a list based on intelligence. Okay, Sandra is a 2-time winner for a reason. She knows how to play Survivor to the best of her abilities. Like you said, Gabler can only win the way he plays because of his age. Sandra can only win the way she plays because what God gave her. Okay, she's not a physical threat. She can only do what she can do, and she wins both times because she plays that underdog lying under the water, anyone but me. I despise that version of Survivor, but again, it got her 2 wins. But you want to mention Tina?
I do. I have Tina ranked at 13, which I know is shocking for some. This is also, this was my first season I watched. Colby is my all-time favorite, right? Like, if you were to ask me who's your favorite player, after how excited I was that he was on 50, watching him on 50, crying as he's being voted out, I had about 6 or 7 too many drinks at the Ron Clark event, and I'm sitting there watching Colby get voted out, and I'm literally crying, and my wife's rubbing my back, and I'm like, this is pathetic. Like, hopefully nobody's turning around and looking at me. This was immediately after being there for the whole Johnny Fairplay Camilla situation. I'm just like, you know, there was a lot going on, a lot of emotion that night. And so I love Colby. And do I think Colby would have been a more satisfying winner of Australian Outback? Absolutely, especially for 9-year-old Phil. But Tina's game is so damn good. Again, because I give the credit for, this is an older woman coming out to play Survivor immediately after a season where the only thing we saw the older woman do was suck at the game. Sue Hawk goes the furthest, and she's terrible at Survivor. Like, I'm sorry, but she's bad.
Yes.
And all the other older women go out really, really early. And Tina comes out and immediately is on the wrong side of things just because of her age. But she realizes where there are avenues. She cuts Mad Dog, her best friend in the game. Mad Dog's in there. Tina's a shining light. She's so perfect. I love her. Bye, Mad Dog. Don't give a shit about you. To pull the split vote on Mitchell with Colby and Keith is brilliant. She consistently positions herself so that she's always closest with whoever she needs to be with. She's so good socially. She convinces Colby to take her to the end anyway. Now, is it just a bad move by Colby? Yeah. But Colby was more worried about being the good guy, and she knew that. So I think that Tina's game is flawless. The problem is Tina's game is also not super exciting in the great realm of Survivor. There's no idols. There's no twist. There's not even a tribe swap. They get the 5-4 advantage after Varner goes out at Final 10, and then they can really just navigate the game. But I do also appreciate that Tina and Colby were having the conversations of, well, we really hate Jerry. Why not just get rid of her? We'll still have the numbers. We really don't like Amber. Why not just get rid of her? We'll still have the numbers. I like that they started introducing that to Survivor, because I think it's what breaks up the string of pagongings that go on. You know, at least in the first season, and then like we see in season 5 and a couple of the other seasons down the street.
The one thing I'll say about Tina, you bring up a bunch of great points. there is so much of her game and her weaseling her way in that we just don't see because it's not an exciting version of the game, and they just flat out don't have that in the edit of Survivor. And again, I'm watching these when I made these rankings originally. I'm not going to change after I put them on there because I saw a version of Survivor that showed me Colby as the winner of that season, and it's flat out a surprise when Tina wins at the end. And so that's why I have her as low as I do. That's probably the only one. I'm never going to move on Chris. I'm sorry. I'm never going to move on Chris.
Have you
But
rewatched
that's the only.
Vanuatu?
I've only watched all these once, my guy.
I'm telling you, you're going to have a newfound appreciation. I'm telling you, Vanuatu is the sleeper of Survivor whether as a season and as a winner. It is the one that's going to sneak up on you. I'm telling you. At least
I don't
you're
know how
up to 45.
I don't know. I don't know how I can rewatch Vanuatu and not fall in love with Amy again, but that's enough for the bottom 10 on this list. Now we need to go to the next 8, numbers 40 through 33. I will read them off again. Number 40, Michelle Fitzgerald, who got very angry at me when I were number 39, Vesepia, who I met at the Survivor 50 finale. Couldn't have been nicer. Number 38, your man Todd. Number 37, Sandra's first win at the Pearl Islands. Number 36, we have Adam from Millennials versus Gen X. 35, Denise from the Philippines. 34, the original champion, Mr. Richard Hatch himself. And at number 33, we have Danny Boatwright. A lot of older winners here, a lot of older seasons in the victory laps here. And to me, it's all similar in that these are, in my opinion, either games played where we're not playing Survivor or they're incomplete games in my eyes. And flat out with Michelle, one of the reasons I don't want that one of the reasons I disagree with Michelle's victory here is because I'm still in the camp that Aubry deserved the victory, and they don't show Michelle's game during her season at Calrong. But out of these 8 right here, are there any that jump out to you that you have huge disagreements about?
This might be the worst stretch ever. This was supposed to be like an hour and a half podcast, people. This might be 4.5 hours. I got a movie at 1, dude. There's no shot I'm making it. Look, I'll give you Adam here. I have Adam at 25. You put him at 36 again. Not a massive gap. I think you're a little high on Danny. I have her at 41. I think Danny plays the worst version of what Chris Doherty's game is. I think Chris Doherty, I think if you were to rewatch Guatemala and rewatch Vanuatu, that's where your flop could happen. Because I just find
I don't want to take too long on Danny. I find her competition a hell of a lot tougher than what Chris had to face in Vanuatu.
I disagree, and one of the main reasons I disagree with that is because Stephanie and Bobby John coming into the game totally screwed everything up, and it just changed everything, and everybody was so much more focused on them that everybody else is just kind of existing. And so that was an issue for me. Hatch, I always am going to revere the first winner in the history of the show. I rank him at 6. I'm also not going to argue with people who rank him at 34. I understand that it is the first time that the game has ever been played, and it might not be the most exciting. I do think we take for granted, though, if Hatch doesn't come up with the plan that he comes up with, who was going to? Like, everybody, I got an argument with Will on our podcast where Will was like, well, this is what Survivor was. It's like, yes, but 15 other people did not realize that. You can't take for granted that that was just going to happen. That season has a 4-1-1-1-1-1-1 vote. Like, what are we talking about? So that's my thing on Hatch. I can understand the ranking there. Denise, I'm a little surprised you're as low on her as you are. I have her at 15, so a little bit of a gap there. I feel like Denise goes to she goes to every single tribal council on that season, has to rely completely on her social game, is able to beat a returning player at final tribal council, which we'd only seen happen once up to that point, which was Sophie against Coach. Also beats Lisa. Her and Malcolm were always a step ahead of Penner on that season, just making the alliances and doing what they needed to. So Denise, for me, I'm a little surprised you have her this low, so I'm curious why you rank her here.
I don't think her going to every tribal council is a feather in her cap. Her surviving every tribal council is a feather, but her going to she's only survives every single one because she finds herself in the seat of every single one. And I think that's a detriment to her overall game. And the fact that she survives it is fantastic. I don't think she won. I thought Lisa played the better game, and I think Penner doesn't get enough hate for what he did at Final Tribal against Lisa, revealing that secret to everybody. I believe if Penner doesn't do that, Lisa wins the game. And I think Lisa played a better game than what Denise did. And I think Denise played the only way she could win. So like she had to stab people in the back the way she did it. I did not, there's no honor in Survivor, but I did not see her as a great big threat, in that season. She did what she could to survive, but it wasn't as impressive to me. I could probably put her a little bit higher, but even so, it's not the one that I'm gonna be the proudest of at 35 there.
Yeah, I think Lisa, I never liked Lisa's game personally. I always think Lisa was just so over the top, the crying, the whining, all of this stuff. Like it never felt like she was actually playing Survivor. It felt like she was just like honestly suffering a little PTSD, and we were just watching her suffer PTSD for a lot of days. So that was tough.
Hmm.
Sandra Diaz Twine 1.0. People don't realize like her first game. People will now try to argue her first game is better than her second, which is obviously what you're ranking here. Personally, I don't think her first game is better at all. I think if you went back to the summer of 2004, nobody even remembered that she had won the game already because it was
Yeah.
just whatever. Nobody cared about Sandra's first win. Sandra became a legend for her second one. All right, now I got to get to these last three though. We gotta crack my neck.
Last three, Vesepi is in there too.
Oh, dude, Vesepia's game is incredible. So here's the thing. Michelle, obviously Michelle is my queen. I love Michelle. I still only rank her at 24, but I love Michelle. I think Michelle plays such an unbelievable social game. To me, it's the best social game in the history of the show, with the exception of probably Vesepia, which I'll get to in a second. But Michelle's game is so perfect for what she does. And here, we just talked about it. Here's the biggest problem. Aubry forgot that Jason and Scott have votes too. Like they get to vote at the end. And I know that people will say, oh, well, the jury was just bitter. Well, yeah, I would be bitter too against somebody who kind of doesn't treat me like a real person or like anything the whole time I'm out there. And that's Aubry's biggest flaw her first time around. She's phenomenal with Joe. She's phenomenal with Neil. She's even great with Sydney, who ultimately doesn't end up voting for her, which is shocking. Beyond that, she doesn't do a great job with Julia. She leaves Julia on the outs of so many things. She's terrible with Scott and Jason. They see through everything she's saying. And Michelle,
Who are terrible people. Who are
Well,
terrible people. I do have
first
to
of
add,
all-
who are terrible people. And I understand they're like you have to get the votes of those people. But Michelle plays great to the bullies of that season, and that's why she wins. The bullies
That's
decided
Survivor.
in the end. I
What was
understand.
I mean, we live in California. That one governor who's like, I don't need those votes, and she's not running for governor anymore. I'm just saying, like, you have to play the season that you're playing. And look, I think personally, I think Kyle Jason should have played Survivor a second time. I think Kyle Jason is phenomenal television. I think Kyle Jason does exactly what he's supposed to. I think Scott gets over the top, but I also think Scott's been pretty apologetic since he played. Michelle, to me, though, it's all about the social game. And yeah, does she get the benefit of Joe getting medevac? For sure. Aubry's going home if Neil doesn't get medevac at the merge. That is set in stone. And anybody who says Neil is going to play the idol for Aubry, give me a break. He didn't even give her the idol when he was getting pulled out of the game. He could care less about Aubry as a person. He wanted his souvenir. I think Michelle plays a great game. I still only rank her a little bit higher. Todd and Vesepi are where I have to go, but go ahead.
No, I'm there on Michelle. I understand. I am alone on that. I will never believe that Aubry doesn't deserve to win. And I am. Listen, this is the bigger conversation of all of these winners lists, and you can either agree with this or disagree with this. And I don't know where Phil's stance is, and I don't mean to drop this, big moral topic on you, but do you believe that every winner deserves their victory? Like, do you believe that no matter who the jury chooses, that is who wins or who deserves the victory?
I think there's two instances of unbelievably bitter juries that took it away from a better winner. I truly think there's only two in the history of the show. I think it's Natalie, and I get Russell was a total asshole to so many people, but Laura Moret is so bitter. Her and her like clan of women there are so nasty to
They're
Shambo.
they're very
so
bitter.
nasty to everybody else. And then when they get got, they want to be like, oh, Russell, how could you treat people like that? They are so bitter because they're not the ones who came up with it first. And the other one, in my opinion, is Amber. I think that Boston Rob plays the better game. And I think that Boston Rob, he pisses everybody off. He's going to get the win no matter what because him and Amber get married. But I think those are the only two instances in Survivor history where truly the person who deserved to win lost. And I'll fall on the sword for Russell because I know now people have just fallen out on Russell. I know he's done some egregious things on social media. He said some absurd things. I mean, obviously the whole crap with Wendell back with the phone number was absolutely insane. But for me, it's like he reinvented what Survivor was. And without Russell, Survivor probably doesn't even exist anymore, truly. That's how important he was. And without Russell, Natalie White is not even close to sitting at Final Three. I think those are two instances where juries really got it wrong. Other than that, yes, I'm on board with everybody who won deserved to win, and you can see their wins throughout their game when you, again, rewatch. I know Tony's over here like, I'm never rewatching this shit again. When you rewatch, it's there. I'm telling you, almost every win. The only one that I'm not sure of is Erica. But Erica, I also can't argue that Xander or Deshaun deserved it over her. I don't really feel like anybody deserved it on that season.
I agree with you there. I will say I am of the mind that the jury can make a mistake. No jury is infallible. And just because it's written into the game that the jury's votes give the victory does not mean that winner deserves said victory. And I think Palau is a great argument against that. But with Michelle, at number 40, I believe that the jury was so bitter towards Aubry because Aubry wasn't nice to them because they were on. There was a heavy line in the middle of that season, and Aubry was on the other side. And I believe if you gave it to the better game player, Aubry wins. But it's okay. Aubry wins in the future, and we haven't gotten to her yet on this list. But let's go through Vecepia and Todd real quickly here.
Yeah. I mean, these are going to be the two biggest disagreements we have. I'm not really concerned moving forward on this, which is why I'm spending a little bit more time back here. I have Vecepia at number 10. And I know that's crazy to some people.
Wow.
Like Vecepia at 10, how can you do that? We barely see her game. She's barely on the season, whatever.
That's why she's at 39 for me. I don't even want to disagree with you. It's only because we don't see it happen, but go.
Okay. Like I said, I've watched the first 20 seasons probably about 5 or 6 times each. Okay. My love for Vecepia grows every time, and here's the reason why. The first 3 seasons of Survivor, there was one thing you needed to have to win. You needed to have the numbers when you hit the merge. You had to. You did not have a choice. Somehow Ethan almost screws that up because Kelly Goldsmith should have been able to pull over Brandon Quinton, and Brandon Quinton screws up the whole game. That's a different story. But Vecepia goes into the merge down 7-3. 7-3. She's in the exact same position as Boston Rob, who many consider one of the greatest to ever play the game. They will rank him. He's on the Rushmore, all of this. She's in the exact same position. And what's the difference? He doesn't make the jury and she wins the game. That's the difference. She takes her moment. And here's the thing with Vecepia. People will just be like, yeah, but how much of it did she really control? She controlled enough of it. Her and Sean were coming in to get Kathy, Pascal, and Aaliyah and make them see the light. And maybe Kathy's making them see the light a little bit more. Would Kathy have been a better winner? Probably. But to be the first winner to ever come from a minority tribe and have it be a 7-2 deficit. And not only are you coming back from the 7-2 deficit, creating a 5-4, creating the first real blindside in Survivor history. Then at Final 5, you're in a better position than Sean. And then for the deal that she makes at Final 3 with Nalia, so that Nalia will take her. So Nalia looks like the bad guy instead of her because Nalia knows she can't beat Kathy. And that's ultimately what wraps it up for Vecepia. Look, it's very subtle. She's not the most interesting character. I understand why she hasn't played Survivor again, even though I will always fight for the fact that she should have. Vecepia's game is unlike anything we had ever seen up to that point. And really, we don't see anything like it again until we get to Chris Doherty, who I also respect heavily. So again, a lot more of my stuff comes from the history of the show. And that's why I'll rank Tina and Vecepia higher.
Do you, where do you put into account Vecepia's victory and the fact that the best player gets taken out by a rock draw?
You think Pascal was the best player?
That season, yeah. I think Pascal wins no matter who he's up against, whether it's Kathy or whomever else. I think Pascal wins.
I think there's so many issues with Survivor in the early seasons. You have the Stacey Stillman incident in season 1. In season 2, you have them banging their foot as many times as they want to say whether or not it's going to be a tie vote or not a tie vote. At Final 4, the challenge, infamously, Lindsay also didn't have a tattoo or did have a tattoo, whatever the hell it was. And Tom and Lex both get second place money there. Yes, the rock draw was done improperly. I hear you on that. But at the same time, even if the rock draw doesn't happen that way, and it goes as a fire-making challenge like it should have, Pascal stays in, Kathy's probably beating Nalia, and I still think that we're probably sitting with Vecepia. Maybe, I mean, look, Vecepia then isn't against Nalia, so maybe she can't win, but I can't fault her for production not understanding their own rules of their game.
No, I understand. I just wanted to bring that up. It's mostly because Daryl, who's watching right now, agrees that Vecepia is so underrated. Again, man, I'm watching this all for the first time, and I do not see any of her game get played. But I do understand the fact that it was the first time someone came from not the Power Alliance at the merge, and that's important. But the big one, we're already 45 minutes into this conversation. We haven't even gotten into the 20s yet, but I do want to hear your stance. No. This is what I want. I want to hear your stance on Todd because China is one of my least favorite seasons, and Bailey was on my ass about it yesterday, talking about how China is great and all the reasons China is great. I also have Todd as a very low winner for my own reasons, but you have Todd as one of your top ones.
One of my top ones. Todd, China's the best season in the show's history. Todd's the best winner in the show's history. There's just no
You have him number one?
Oh, 100%. There's no doubt in my mind. So you've already gotten rid of my top two. I go Todd at 1, Chris Doherty at 2. You've already gotten rid of both of them. We're not even into the 20s, like you said. Todd's game is so impeccable. He perfects what Rob Cesternino tried to do in Amazon, and it took 9 seasons for somebody to do that. The other thing that Todd does, yes, it's helped by the fact that he's on Fei Long, right? But it also isn't helped by that fact because look at the meatheads around him. You have the absolute pig that is Jean Robert. You have James, who should never want to work with these underdog type people. You have Denise, who works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I don't know if you know that about her or not. Okay. She does not stop working. You have all of these big personalities. And Todd came out there and he said, I'm the smallest guy here. And everybody's going to realize that I'm a fan of the show. And so I need to be sharp, but I can't let them know how sharp I am. And I need to find people that I can trust wholeheartedly no matter what. And he picks up Courtney and he picks up Amanda, 2 other huge underdogs. I know Amanda might not seem like as much of an underdog, but picks up these 2 underdogs. He navigates that game as perfectly as you're supposed to. What he does with Leslie, with all the information, he gets the idol information, and he's like, bye, Leslie, don't care, you're out of here. He tells James about the idols. And then he votes out James at a tribal council where he very easily could have been the person to go home, but he knew that that was the moment he had to strike because if he doesn't vote out James there, James is winning Survivor China. He does all of these things right. He gets to the end, in my opinion, and I know you're going to disagree with this, but in my opinion, it's the best final 3 in the history of the show, and he wins it. And he gives the best final tribal council performance, with the exception of Chris Doherty. I didn't mention his final tribal because we only have so much time. Todd,
listen, it's not hard to out-talk Twyla, but keep going.
Yeah, I get that. But I brought your hat. I mean, come on. That's like one of my all-time favorite lines. Julie, I brought your hat. And then he just gives him the F yeah as he runs away. But Todd, when Todd answers Jean Robert's question and James just starts laughing and they're like, what's up? He shut him up. Like Todd is the first player, in my opinion, he is the first player to understand every single person on his season. And that's why I revere him, because he knew what made everybody tick. He knew Courtney couldn't stand Jean Robert, but he knew he needed to keep Jean Robert in the game a little bit longer. He knew that James was really good physically and good socially, but horrible strategically. He knew that, but he also knew the personal elements of each of these people. He even knows PG. He even knows Denise. Like he does his homework on everybody and he understands it, and he's using people as pawns, but he's also building relationships in a way that we've just never seen. And he's doing it from an underdog because he's the small gay Mormon flight attendant. They make sure to tell you that 47 times in the first episode. He's this little underdog guy. And every season before this, Yao Man's not an underdog, okay? Especially not on that cast. Earl and Yao Man, they're not underdogs. Season 13, Yul and Ozzy, sure, then the I-24, they're not underdogs. Season 12, you have the best physical player of all time in Terry, the best strategic player of all time in Suri. You have Aris and Danielle who could kick my ass still. They're not underdogs. Maybe you could argue season 11, but Danny's a professional athlete essentially at one point in her life. You have Stephanie, who's an unbelievable athlete, and Rafe is an unbelievable strategist. They're not underdogs. He takes Courtney and Amanda up against all of these titans. And it's something that we hadn't really seen in the show. So, yeah, Todd's my number one.
The number one, I'll get to Todd in a second. We do have a lot of the comment section agree with you. Bailey Buffs is in there. Justice for China. Daryl saying China is amazing. Todd is a great winner. His final tribal performance is phenomenal. Absolutely agree. Arguably the best final tribal performance in the history of Survivor. And Justice for Keith says if PG knew what she was doing, she would have sniped Todd when Todd was trying to snipe James. The one thing I'll say about Todd, it's similar to a guy we haven't talked about on this list yet in JT and Stephen Fishback, who it's a tag team all the way to the finish, and they cannot work without the other one. They are the yin to the other one's yang. And I have no respect for Courtney's game of Survivor, but I do have a lot of respect for Amanda's first season of Survivor. And I don't believe Todd wins without Amanda by his side. And neither does Amanda get to the final three without Todd by her side. And I saw this season in particular as Todd being extremely skittish at points where he wants to vote for A and then he comes on to vote for B because he hears new information, and then now the vote's going to C, and each time he has to inform Amanda and they collaborate on what they're thinking, and Amanda's sitting there going, we're all over the place, we need to straighten this thing out. And I believe if it wasn't for Amanda, Todd does end up flying on the wrong side of the vote once or twice and gets himself on the outside looking in. So I believe he needs Amanda as a rod of strength as much as anyone. And I also believe that at that final tribal, if he doesn't pull out he pulls the sword from the stone at final tribal and convinces the world that he deserves to win. Going into that final tribal, Amanda Kimmel's the winner. And at least in my opinion. And so I don't think Todd doesn't deserve this win. He very much does. But I did not see him having as dominant a victory because Amanda Kimmel's right next to him the whole entire time. But that's me.
All I'm going to say is then, and I hear what you're saying, but all I'm going to say is you better not have Parvati ranked in the top 32 then. You better not. You better not. Because Amanda Kimmel was going to win that season going into Final Tribal. And without Sari and Amanda, Parvati doesn't get to Final 3. I'm just saying she better not be in your top 32, Tony. I got to hold you to consistency, if nothing else.
Well, we'll see where Parvati ends up.
But just to say one last thing on Todd, adaptability. That's what I think he's doing. He's adapting to the information. He doesn't get steadfast and everything. And I think too many Survivor players in the early seasons got so committed to just, this is what I have to do. I have to go this way.
Yeah.
And I think that's why this season launches the golden era of Survivor. And it's all about adaptability moving forward after this.
So let's move on. In a 50-minute show, we're finally getting to winner number 32 through, I believe, 25, if I can do my math correctly. And that list is as follows. At number 32, we have Marianne from, I believe, season 42. 31 is Jam Jam. Number 30 is season 50's winner, the debut on the top 50 list. That is Aubry. Number 29, I have Bob from Gabon. Number 28, I have Kenzie. Number 27, I do have Amber here, a little bit higher than you probably have her from season 8 All-Stars. Number 26, I have Tommy from the season that shall not be named. And then at number 25, starting the top half of this list, Jenna from the Amazon. Now, this is right in the middle here, Phil. So is there anyone that is much higher on your list or much lower on your list now that we're getting to the top half of it?
Yeah, I think you're giving a little too much credit to Jenna and Amber. Those are the two. Like
okay.
Here's what I will say. I find your newer seasons rankings to be pretty, like, they're not too far off from mine. Like, even Michelle, you're putting her at 40, but like in the grand scheme of things, we have similar people ranked above her. I think that though, like, you're looking at Jenna and Amber and putting them at 25 and 27 and then turning around and putting, Chris back at 47 and Todd at 38. I think that's crazy. Jenna's game, I ranked very low. Amber, I think she just rode Boston Rob's coattails. I have her ranked at 48. Jenna, though, was one that's interesting because people tried to make the argument for Jenna that, look what she did at the end game. She did this, she did that. Nothing Jenna did was intentional. And that's my biggest problem with Jenna Maraska's game. I love the Amazon, but it's not intentional.
I disagree. I see what you're saying, that it's not all intentional. I think Jenna is much smarter than people think. And I think at the Amazon, you talk about playing from the underdog role. She is literally a forgotten about asset in that game. She's the girl that gets naked, like she's the hot one. And yet she is smart enough to play under the horniness of Rob Sesternino, under the stupidness of Matt. Like, she plays under all of that and finds her way to the alliances that need to be the add-on. And she's running that whole thing. Like, in my opinion, she's running that whole thing. The only reason I have her this low, in my opinion, this low, is because she literally almost quits. Like, she almost quits. It becomes too hard for her. And it's a hard season. They're raining all the time. The Amazon's a terrible place to be. But like, she almost walks out of the game. And so to me, that brings her that low. But as for how she played, I thought she was awesome.
See, I think that there's like a lot of like filling in gaps there where the story might not actually be what you're putting in those gaps. I feel like Jenna, I feel like Rob Sesternino runs the whole thing. I think Heidi is doing most of the work for Jenna throughout the game. And I don't think she's purposefully being under the radar. I think that Jenna Maraska accidentally gets into the position she is. She wants to leave. She doesn't want to be there. She has no interest, and she just happens to win a bunch of votes at the end. And if she sits next to Rob wins easily. She sits there next to Matt, and Matt was like the creepiest guy ever out there. I just think of Christy going, he's creepy. He's creepy. Like,
Him
that's
doing
all
the
I can think
machete.
of. With the machete, yeah, well, how sharp do you need to make your machete? I don't see Jenna's game. I love Amazon, but it's the Rob Cesternino show. I think that really, if you were to ask me, I think Jenna's probably the 7th or 8th best player on that season, truly. Like, I think there's so many better players out there. Go ahead.
We do have some disagreements. Justice for Keith says, according to Rob Cesternino, he thinks he would have lost a jury vote against Jenna. The edit was supposedly rough on her, yet Darrow's on your side, disagreeing with me that Jenna's running the whole thing, amazed that Jenna is at 25. I think it's a wonderful season. It's season 6. The Amazon is my second highest of the top 10 on my season rankings that I did with Bailey. I loved watching it, even though there are some terrible people on there, but I really enjoyed the theater of it all. And I do believe, I mean, again, maybe I am filling in the gaps, but I do believe Jenna was more in control than she was not in control. But that's just me. But you also have Amber really low.
Yeah.
I think Boston Rob it absolutely plays the better game, but loses because everyone hates him. I think Amber plays a damn good game, dude. I don't think it was just Boston Rob and she's riding the coattails.
So here's another thing that I always do, and this is why I have Amber ranked at 48. There are 18 people on Survivor All-Stars. She is the 18th All-Star on that season. She is on that season because Elizabeth Hasselbeck said no, because Colleen said no, because all these people said no.
And she wins. So
no, she wins.
She wins.
Here's my thing. Here's what my thing is, and this is what I always revere: first-time wins higher than second-time wins. That's why I don't have Tyson as high as you're going to have him. I don't have Cochran as high as you're going to have him. I don't have Boston Rob as high as you're going to have him, especially Boston Rob playing his 4th time, but we'll get there. The thing with Amber is, the first time she played, she's a nothing burger. She really is. And I feel the same way about Parvati. People will try to argue Parvati plays this great game in Cook Islands. It's not there. And so when I watch Amber's first game and then she comes out, of course, she's going to be able to skate by a little bit because everybody's more worried about Lex and Colby and Ethan and, all these other people. Rupert is this big personality, even though he gets 8th place, all this different stuff. Amber comes in with no threat. And then she doesn't have to do anything to win it. Like, that's where I'll rank Sandra much higher than her for Heroes Villains, because Sandra was a winner. She was a winner. Like, Amber is just there. She's filling a spot. She's not supposed to win the season. And then Boston Rob makes every decision for her throughout the game. Amber's
that's a big
there.
disagreement that I have, that Boston Rob makes every decision, because I see this truly as king and queen. And I think Amber immediately saw what was going on in the island, and she purposefully, and Boston Rob does it too, they give a million confessionals during the season, that they're purposefully trying to flirt with the other one in order to stab them in the back later. Amber has the same idea that Boston Rob has, and then suddenly, Cupid's arrow hits them both. But while they're making these active decisions in the game, they're doing it as a collaborative effort. Boston Rob is the showman, but Amber very much is driving that truck as much as Boston Rob is, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, All-Star is one of my least favorite seasons of all time. I struggle every time I try to go through it. I hate that Amber wins. I don't like Amber as a player. I don't think there's anything there. I think Boston Rob is just like, here, jump on my back. Let's go. And yeah, she'll have a confessional or two about flirting. If I looked like Amber, maybe I could flirt too. Okay. Like, you
got to work with what God gave you, Phil. You got to work with what God gave you.
I agree. But I think what God gave Boston Rob is a Boston masshole attitude. And it's phenomenal to watch. And I just think he plays a much better game. If Boston Rob wins All-Stars, that is
one of the best victories ever,
in my opinion.
Yeah, one of the best victories ever.
Him winning Redemption
we do have
a bunch of nobodies.
Well, we're gonna talk about Redemption in a second. We do have a lot of question marks about Bob coming in at 29. Where'd you put Bob Crowley in yours?
So I put Bob at 45, but here's my thing. I love Bob. I think Bob is the first player that I think, other than Ethan, who on day one, he was my favorite player, and then he ends up winning the season. So I'm really into that. Same thing with Gabler. He plays the game he has to play. That's it.
Yep.
Like, he can't play a different game. And we can say, oh, well, he had won a bunch of immunities at the end. He's 57 years old. Good for him.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So many immunities. Like,
I put a lot of credit in that, especially on the immunity angle. Like, Bob comes in, and again, it has to do with the merge and who their targets are at the 10, at the 8, all that stuff. but Bob eventually does become the number one target and cannot be taken out. So he gets on the social side for the first steps of the game. And then at the end of the game, he actively strategizes and out physicals much more physical competitors for the ending. And he cannot be defeated. The only thing that keeps him this low is I think Sugar played just as good of a game, but she literally actively votes for Bob while doing Final Tribal. So I'm big on Bob, man. I think he's underrated. I still only have him at 29, but I don't understand why people have him as low consensus as they do. Sorry to cut you off, Phil.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's because it's the easy thing to do because the internet says Bob stinks, so let's just say Bob stinks. Like truly, that's what it is. I mean, it's crazy, but that's what it is. I love Bob. Like I have him at 45, but like if you asked me, could you make an argument for him at 29? Yeah, I could. That's why I'm not giving you shit for him here because I think that Bob is just somebody who gets absolutely dismissed. He only beats Susie 4-3, whatever. He wins one of the hardest seasons of Survivor to win. That season is all over the place. And yeah, Sugar ultimately makes the decision to put him in fire against Maddie and he gets to go make fire. Maddie should have tried making fire then. Like, assume the worst is going to happen. That's not my fault that Maddie didn't know. So yeah, that's that. The other one that I'm in disagreement with you on here is Kenzie. Personally, I have her at 44. It's a big gap, but it's not crazy. I don't even care that she beats Charlie by 1 vote. I'm not even super high on Charlie's game. I like Charlie, but I think 46 falls into the Gabon thing of like, were we ever truly going to get a great winner? I don't think so. But Kenzie, to me, it's so much of like being in with somebody else. She always feels like the sidekick to me. And then I just don't feel like the story is told that well. I think she plays a really good social game, but she tries to make social game. Yeah, she tries to make a lot of strategic decisions that just blow up in her face. And I think like the Tiffany boot is one of the biggest. She wanted to get rid of Tiffany and then isn't able to do it at the time and is left out of that vote and all of that. The Hunter moment is her best play of the game without a doubt, in my opinion.
It's one of the best social games in the history of Survivor. Like people love Michelle Fitzgerald, they should love Kenzie. Like I think Kenzie is awesome in her season doing with only thing that she has to do with. And yeah, I see her as the mermaid dragon or whatever Banu calls her. Like I think Kenzie is an absolute destroyer of worlds in one singular aspect of the game because all of these lists right here, they're all incomplete games. We have yet to get, we're again at the bottom 25, we're an hour into this thing, but we have yet to get to people who have full complete games. And the last thing I want to say before we move forward is where do you have season 50's winner? Because she's the first new name on this list. Aubry at number 30 on my list. Where do you have Aubry season 50?
34.
So around the same. Around the same. I personally, because again, I haven't talked about this at length in any video. I've been saving it for this particular listicle here. I think this was Aubry's Lifetime Achievement Award, getting this victory here. I think the only reason she wins is because she is next to Jonathan and Joe, which is her doing. Don't get me wrong. But her biggest move, obviously, is figuring out Ozzy's play and getting Ozzy out. And also Genevieve having the worst luck when it comes to production, getting 2 idols and not being able to use either one of them and being in direct argument with Aubry, who gets to take her out for it. Aubry can't help what production is, just like Chris Daughtry can't help what Edge of Extinction is. But Aubry's great gameplay is her taking out the absolute studs of that season in Ozzy and Cirie. And then at the end, she pulls off the most clutch win of all. They're trying to actively get her out and have a final 3 of all newbie dudes, and she wins Samotion. And Joe Hunter has to be kicking himself. 2 straight seasons, he loses Samotion at the end. That likely would have at least helped him get a better chance of winning at Final Tribal. Aubry, it's a fantastic middle tier winning season. That's how I'll have it.
Yeah, Aubry, it's funny. I've said this a couple times now. Aubry's win is fascinating because I don't feel like I actually got to watch Aubry play Survivor. I barely hear from her. I do love that towar's the end of the season. Like, I'm learning from what Michelle did. And I'm like, yeah, you are. Michelle, don't forget it, everybody. Michelle finally getting her credit, victory lap. But I rank her at 34. But then if you were to ask me, and I don't think, I keep saying this, I don't think people are ready to have this conversation. Is Aubry a top 5 Survivor player of all time? I truly think she might be. I think she's definitely top 10. I think if you're not putting her in your top 10, you're lying to yourself. And
has to be top 10.
And I think that there's a lot going on here though, where, just because you're winning season, like Sandra, you have her ranked super low. I think Sandra's she's on the Rushmore of Survivor. That doesn't mean her wins have to be ranked super high. It's what you can do overall and what you actually bring to the game. I think Aubry's a top 10 player and maybe a top 5 player, but I don't think people want to have that discussion. She plays maybe the best runner-up game in the history of the show. She wins a returning player season where, yeah, it's varying levels of threat, but she's not as low as Amber's threat level coming in, that's for sure. But it's so hard because Survivor 50 is in the hands of production. That's all it is. It is just production, production, production. How can we make the game what we want it to be? I don't know if you saw like the Variety article thing. It's one Survivor player and 3 people who work behind the scenes. That's for your consideration for Emmys. I think that's where Survivor's at. And whether I think that's a bad thing, but if Survivor wants that to be a good thing, make it a good thing. They're more focused on production than the players. And that's why Aubry's game, Aubry losing to Michelle and Ko wrong, as controversial as that is, and her story probably ending with her winning this season, should be so much more satisfying than it ultimately is because production gets too involved.
Yeah. No, I hear you perfectly. The crowd that's watching right now, again, we're live on YouTube. If you're joining us a little bit late into this hour-long podcast, we are talking about every single season. If you're watching YouTube live, you can get in the comments and help us out. If you're watching later on Spotify, on Apple Music, on YouTube, join us every Thursday at 9 a.m. where me and my normal co-host Bailey Buffs will be breaking down everything in the world of Survivor. But the comment section does agree. Aubry won on her 4th try, just like Boston Rob. Daryl says I would put Aubry's win right in the middle of the list. Justice for Keith says Aubry was supremely saved by not going to tribal councils in the pre-merge, and then hands down Survivor says Aubry was good. I believe she was good too, and I do like Aubry as a player. Again, just because she's a great player doesn't mean that win needs to be great, but we are finally at, Phil, the top 24 of this list. Only 3 more slides to go. This is the cream of the crop, a bunch of players that you don't have up there because your 1 and 2 is already gone. But let me find the right slide and go through number 24 to 17. At number 4, we have Sarah Lucina. Number 23, we have Tyson. Number 22, we have Brian from Thailand. 21, Aris winning Exile Island. Number 20, I do have Ben from HHH. Number 19, I have Mike Holloway from Worlds Apart. 18, Sophie from the cult that was South Pacific. And then finally, number 17, the perfect game of Earl Cole. My man Phil, what's wrong with this list? Who do you have here that should be supremely lower?
You know what it is for me here? It just is random. It's so random, Tony. I can't figure out where you're going. Here's my thing. When I'm making my ranking, when I'm putting it together, I try to be consistent. And like, I appreciate Michelle's game more than Kenzie's. We had an argument one time on our thing that was like, you guys are revering Michelle's game more. You're mad that Kenzie beat a man, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I'm saying that the person Michelle beat is a significantly better player than the player that Kenzie beat. Sorry that I'm saying that the female player is better than the male player. Like, I don't know what you want from me, but that was an argument that was being made. But I try to be consistent in like, I just think Michelle plays a better game. Her social game is better than what Kenzie's is. I think Kenzie benefits a lot from, idol plays and things like that. When I look at this one, this is kind of like every one of these players does something different. And so I'm having a hard time figuring out why you have certain ones ranked certain places, especially like, I understand Tyson here at 23. That's fine. I had him somewhere around there too. I mean, maybe I have him exactly at 23. So we're in total agreement there. Sarah Lucina, you have at 24. I have her at 17, not far off there. The ones for me, Ben, and I love Ben as a person, but in terms of his gameplay, he makes some good moves and then he is completely reliant on idols and the Final Four fire making twist. If those things don't happen, he's out at 7 or he's out at 6 or he's out at 5 or he's out at 4. Like that man, I get it, but I'm not as impressed by that as winning immunities to keep yourself in the game. So I'll give you a little bit more credit there with Mike. I have Mike at 30, lower than you have him, but I do think Mike's game is underrated because Mike says all the things right on his season. He's playing with a bunch of people who don't understand
morons.
Aris, I'm lower on. I feel like Aris's win is just like not that exciting. I have him at 37. I think Terry and Suri are both so much more satisfying. I feel like Terry and Suri are such better players than him. Iceman, I rank him at 11. So I'm happy that you have him at 22. I think Tommy was another one I wanted to mention. I'm happy that you rank Tommy and Brian based on their games, not based on their seasons. If you see a ranking
Yeah.
where Tommy or Brian are like 48 or 49, or if Chris Doherty's 47, just ignore that ranking. But
Brian,
like seriously,
Brian
too many
arguably,
people want them in.
Brian arguably should be higher. One of arguably the best winner until we get to Palau, because he just dominates Thailand. It's a tough watch, and I wouldn't recommend watching it again. He dominates that. The reason why he's so low is because, and this is unfair to him when it comes to these rankings, not that he's going to care, but if you put him in today's version of Survivor, he's out pre-merge because his social game is non-existent to anyone else outside of his power alliance. And he does everything right in Thailand. However, anywhere else is not going to work. As for ours, man, I think out of all of them, he's too low looking back on these rankings, because when you watch Exile Island, that might just be the most crazy island of misfit toys that we have in Survivor up to that point. And Aris is at the top managing all of these personalities. He keeps Shane in check, and he's allowed to go butt heads against Terry and keep him as the villain shield on the other side because he's this guy they all have to take down. He allows Sari to not get the better of him. He has some crazy characters on that season, and every one of those characters goes to Aris as the main guy. And the fact that he survives at the end against Danielle, I think personally he very much deserved that victory and has a great victory because of it. I don't know how you have him as low as you do.
For numerous times, the 3-2-1 vote, Saria saving his ass. He's also helped a lot by the fact that it was such a Kasaya versus Lamina. Terry becomes the guy, and then Bruce gets medevaced, and so now you can have a vote there. I still think the final three challenge is maybe the most unfair thing in the history of the show. That's a different story. The other thing for me with Aris is I think Aris makes one of the worst social moves in the history of a game for a winner. And it happens right at the beginning of the game when he sits everybody down and he's like, so Melinda and Suri, you guys suck. We're going to vote out one of you because you guys just suck. Like, I don't know if you know this. I think that the only person, Aris probably beats Shane, but let's be real, Shane was never getting to final two. The only one he can beat from that final four is Danielle. He loses to Terry and he loses to Sari. 37, I still respect you as a winner if you're at 37. Like I respect Gabler as a winner and I have him at 43. I respect Bob as a winner. I have him at 45. But I just think that a lot of times I want to say, hey, this winner beat a lot of really good players. That means that they're a better player. But at the end of the day, Aris beating Sari and Terry doesn't feel like it's because of Aris. Sari goes out at Final Four fire making because Terry teaches Danielle how to make it. And then Danielle votes out Terry because she wins an immunity challenge at the end that truly was not a fair challenge. So Aris doesn't feel like he's in control of those things, but he does deal with the Kasaya 6 chaos about as well as a human being could.
As for Mike Holloway and Ben, this is where my sports background gets in the way of things, because I just love when someone's back is against the wall and they pull it off, because Ben needs those idols. You're absolutely right. Ben needs those idols, dude, but he finds them and he plays them off perfectly, and he needs fire making to move on, but he beats it. He wins fire making and puts himself in there, and then he out-talks the people who have much worse social games than he did at that point. I think Ben absolutely deserves that victory. Same thing with Mike Holloway. He finds himself on the outs and doesn't know what to do at a Survivor auction where he might get the letters from home and he might F everybody over, but then you could see the angel and the devil warring on his shoulder, and he needs all 5 of those immunity victories to win, and he pulls it off. And I love those type of, as Daryl says here, it's a movie victory. It is, man. Back against the wall, they pull it off. So maybe I'm impressed too much by the showman of the world, but that's where I stand.
Well, and this is why I rank Chris, and I keep going back to Chris Doherty back. You have him at 47, but I'm going to make sure we keep talking about him where he deserves to be. The reason why I have Chris so high is because Chris is able to do the back against the wall without this stuff, without needing to win 5 immunities, without having all the idle plays. But I think that Mike plays a much better game than people give him credit for. Again, Mike is telling Dan and Mama C and Rodney what's going to happen, and they just don't listen to him. They just don't care because they're so stubborn because of one thing he did. Well, you should have listened to him. And you know what? I personally do not like Shireen at all. I think that Shireen is problematic for Survivor, and that's a different conversation. But I think what she does on Second Chance is really, really bad and shows her true character. But if the decision is go be with the Dans and Rodneys of the world, or defend the girl that's being kind of assaulted by Will, Mike made the right decision, and it put him in a position where he needed to win 5 immunities in a row. You know, I like watching Luke Skywalker have to overcome the Emperor and Darth Vader. You know, like that's fine. The one thing I will say about Ben too, though, Ben absolutely deserves that win over Chrissy and Ryan. That season is what's fresh in my mind right now. Chrissy's social game, I said it when we were watching it live. I'll say it now. Her social game is not good. It's bad.
No, it's terrible.
Really, really bad. And that's
Yeah.
why she loses. Sorry, I know you had something there.
No, justice for Keith. Mike has a bad social game because a good one would mean socializing with people like Dan, Rodney, and Will. That's exactly what Phil said. I do want to move on a little bit quickly here, but I do want to mention I have Sophie ranked higher than a lot of people. Where do you have Sophie on your list? Because I believe that, yes, Coach ran the cult, but Sophie used Coach as much as Coach used the rest of the field.
Yeah. So I'll say this thing about the last two here because we didn't talk about Earl or Sophie. Sophie I have ranked 38, but I could have an argument for her at 18, 100%. Like she's a 38 for me because of my personal preferences for what I look for in a Survivor winner. Sophie plays the exact game she's supposed to play on that season to win that season. And she's the one who takes
100%.
down Ozzy, and that is what it's all about.
And the immunity victories, exactly.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. I also love her yelling at Albert and being like, help me. And Jeff's like, no, you guys cannot team up to get rid of Ozzy. But Liz, Kenzie, team up, get rid of Maria because you're not Ozzy. And then Earl, I think you're low on. I don't think you're like overly low on him, but I had him at number 7. He came in as our number 3 in our combined ranking. So I think you're a little low on him, but at least you're in the top 20. So you're in the right range.
I do probably have Earl a little bit low, but I just thought Yao Man ran most of that season. But Earl, again, perfect record is nothing to sniff your nose at. But let's move on to the second to last slide, number 16 through number 9. At number 16, I have Savannah Louie, season 49. Number 15, I have JT's perfect game. Number 14, I do have Parvati. Number 13, I have Tony from Cagayan, very different from than Tony at Winners at War. Number 12, I have a couple of new era players in D. Number 11, I have Kyle. Number 10, I have my man Yule as we enter the top 10. And number 9, it is Jeremy from Second Chance. A lot of different players here, a lot of different styles of play, with Kyle being with Camilla under the ropes and then coming out at the end, and Savannah being at the bottom after the merge takes out Nate and being that hot Grim Reaper and flaunting it in everyone's face as she pulls off the victory. Is it a great social game? Do people like Savannah on that season? I don't know. I don't think so, but Savannah definitely won that thing and took the reins of that entire thing from the back. So out of this part of the list, now that we're getting up to the top here, is there anyone here that you have much lower than me?
Savannah, I do, but Savannah's game is going to age unbelievably well. I'm a little bitter. I have her at 29, so like not that much lower, but that's probably the biggest gap here. My biggest issue with Savannah's game is that we already knew she won. That's my biggest problem. Like,
It's not her fault.
50,
yeah.
And I kept saying, no, Sophie Bellardi is getting the edit. Sophie Bellardi is getting the edit. And then Sophie Bellardi's edit slowly started to die away. And I was like, oh my God, this season actually was spoiled essentially by putting Savannah on that third tribe. And of course, we're all going to find that out. Of course, we're all going to know what's going on. But I think Savannah's game is going to age really, 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 really well. I just don't revere the new era, man. I mean, as you can see from my rankings, Sepia at 10, Brian at 11, Tina at 13, Chris Doherty at 2, Todd at 1. I'm an old school guy. I think it's a better version of Survivor. I think there's more skill involved in it. Like, I'm the guy who's going to tell you Marino is better than, most quarterbacks who are playing right now.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, do you think Johnny Unitas is a better quarterback than Pat Mahomes just because he played back when no one knew how to throw a football forward? Like, in my opinion, I understand you. Like Kyle and Dee in that season have to deal with so much on the outside and navigate it perfectly that Richard Hatch never even dreamed of seeing. So that's why I mean, I don't give people up or down because of the year that they played, but I do know what Kyle and Dee did, like actively mastered the game that they had to play.
Well, I'm looking at how do these people evolve the game, right? When they're winning. What kind of game are you playing to evolve it? And that's why, again, like when Marino throws for 5,200 yards and 48 touchdowns, I think the records up to that point were like 36 and 4,000. Like people weren't doing that. Now, when I sit down and I watch somebody throw for 5,500 yards, I'm like, yeah, everybody does that because everybody throws for 350 yards a game. They changed the rules so dramatically. They changed. Football is not what football was in the 80s or the 90s or even the 2000s. Ever since Tom Brady tore his damn ACL, the whole game has changed so significantly. And that's how I feel with Survivor. Once COVID happened, it changed dramatically. I have Kyle and D are my top two new era winners. I have D at 20 and I have Kyle at 22. So I'm not that far off from you. I just don't revere the new era in this way. And so that's the problem for me, but I still understand that they're great games. I just don't know if I could ever consider a new era game to be at the caliber of those people who were truly playing one tribe swap, one idol, here, not all this craziness. Like, how am I going to get myself out of this situation? Mike Holloway is a good example. He just has to win immunities. That's one of the first things Survivor introduced was immunity. The first episode has an immunity challenge to save your tribe. Mike Holloway does that. So I'm always going to revere that a little bit more. I have Kage on Tony as my third favorite game. So I do love Kage on Tony. I think that Kage on Tony is more interesting than Winners at War Tony. But again, I revere first-time plays a lot more than others. I have Parvati at 18, so not far off from you, but I do have to give you a little shit just because you said all those things before. It's like, well, you can't rank Parvati here then because she needed Amanda Kimmel too, and she came in with no threat level and all this stuff. And then JT, I think you're low on. I have JT at 8, but I'm surprised he plays the first perfect game because Earl's game is actually not a perfect game. Rita votes for him. It's just not shown. So I'm surprised you have JT there. I'm a little lower on Yule. No, I have Yule at 12. So I'm almost exactly the same as you. And then I'm a little lower on Jeremy, who I have at 21, just because I think Jeremy gets bailed out big time at Final Six.
Oh, wow. Okay. I think Jeremy and Kelly Wentworth both play extremely strong games and are very, very deserving. If Kelly Wentworth wins, she's right there in Jeremy's spot. As for Tony and Yule, the only thing stopping them from being any higher is that super idol factor. But Tony at least uses it as a tactic. And then Yule playing in the I-2-4. Talk about an underdog comeback story between him and Ozzy. One of my favorite final tribal twosomes. And then Becky is also there. I do love that season. It is my favorite season out of the season rankings when it comes to new non-returnee seasons. Is Cook Island is that season. As for Parvati being there, where she is high and not with others, I just fell in love with that whole Black Widow alliance. And so I think Cirie should have won this season. And if they didn't have as many medevacs as they did, it would be a final 3 and Cirie does come home with the victory. But Parvati did deserve to win over Amanda. And having any one of those final 4 in there would have been a very high ranking because they just ran that whole entire thing with the way they were just tooled around the people. And then as for JT, we have people in here that do agree with you. Hands down Survivor, JT should be in the top 10. I just think, again, JT can't win without Steven, and Parvati can't win without the people she's with. So that all of these other wins to me, even Yule, who can't win without Ozzy winning all the immunities he did, like all these parts of this victory needed to have a second person. Like D doesn't win without Austin. Kyle doesn't win without Camilla. Like the people up at top really run their whole seasons pretty much by themselves. But yeah, that's why I have JT at 15 because I think it's an incomplete game without Steven.
Yeah, I can hear that argument. I also think, though, that JT's legacy has dropped for a lot of people in the long run because of mistakes, air quotes. He doesn't make a mistake in Heroes versus Villains, guys. Like, he was ready to play the game with Coach and with Tyson, who were both on the Villains tribe. Courtney is dating Steven, I think, at that time. Like, he's ready to play the game with Courtney. He doesn't realize that Russell's a psychopath. He doesn't know that. He thinks he's actually helping out a guy in need. So he gives him that because every other villain on that tribe is a normal human being. I'd go have beers with Boston Rob. I'd go have beers with Tyson. I'd go have beers with Coach. I'm not going to go have beers with Russell probably. So I do think that like JT's legacy has dropped off in the community for really no reason. But I also think like you play a perfect game on Survivor. You're the first one to do it. I got to give you the credit there. So I had him at 8. I will say Cook Islands is the biggest faller for me on rewatches. I know you just said it's your favorite of the new of the all newbie seasons. That is a season that I used to rank in my top 10, and now I have it significantly lower. Like I find it to be a slog. They didn't know how to edit 20 people, and it really is just like not as interesting as I remember. Top heavy cast: Penner, Yule, Ozzy, Parv, Candace. Great. Everybody else
top heavy cast. Those are 5 heavy hitters. That's the middle of your lineup. You're winning a lot of baseball games.
There's 14 other people on that cast that they do nothing with, and that's what bothers me.
Yeah. We do have a couple of Kyle saying that's my favorite new era winner. And then we have other people saying D should be a little bit higher than Kyle because 48 was not a very good crew. Sadly, to many people, and maybe even to Phil. Kyle and D are not my top new era winner. Neither is Savannah. There's still one more that is yet to be named because now we are entering the final 8 of this list, the best 8 winners in Survivor history. At number 8, it is Natalie in San Juan del Sur. Number 7, it is Wendell from Ghost Island. Number 6, it is that new era winner, Rachel Lamont. And then the top 5, I will have no arguments against them. Number 5, it's Tony Winners at War. Number 4, it is Tom in Palau. Number 3, Kim in One World. Number 2, Boston Rob, Redemption Island. And then at number 1, the absolute perfect game of John Cochran. That's my top 8, Phil. Ooh, obviously, none of your tops are in here. Or let's start here. Let's be nice. Out of these top 8, which of these winners do you have also in your top 8, if any?
Kim and Tom.
Kim and Tom. Okay. So we can agree there.
Kim ended up being our number 1 on our ranking because nobody ranked Kim lower than 4. That's the thing with Kim.
Yeah.
Nobody ranked her at 1, but nobody ranked her lower than 4. I ranked her at 4. Tom, I rank at 5. So I'm in total agreement with you on those two. Here's the defense I will give you for Cochran and Boston Rob. I rank them significantly lower again because it's not their first time. My biggest problem with Boston Rob's game is it is his 4th time. It is the worst cast in Survivor history. They have never assembled a worse cast. They wanted a dog crap cast so that Boston Rob and Russell could both do well. There is not a brain on those beaches. I'm sorry. Like, I don't care. Like, I've met Andrea in real life numerous times. Wonderful person. But when it came to her first time playing Survivor, she had no idea what she was doing. And the problem was Andrea could have been a great player. Matt Elrod could have been a great player. Mike Chisel, or however you say his last name, could have been a great player. But none of them actually got to play because Boston Rob was demanding everything happen in a very specific way. Now, that's why it's probably the most dominant game in the history of the show. But it's the 4th time you're playing, and you're playing not even like, I understand people say, well, Aubry won on her 4th time. But Aubry's also playing an all-star season that has Sari and has Ozzy and has Genevieve and has Colby, like all of these good players. Rob is playing with Philip Shepard and Natalie Tenorelli and Ralph Kaiser and Sarita. Like, these are horrible Survivor players. And that's why I dock Boston Rob. If that was his first time, like Kim, and he's playing with a terrible cast, I'm fine with it because they're all on an even playing field. Not only this is going back to the Marino thing. This is, like, here comes Dan Marino and he's 10 years retired, but now he's going to go play against a Pop Warner team that went 3-13 last year in like U8. Like, it's like, of course Marino's going to throw for 9,000 yards. He just needs to find somebody who can catch the ball. Boston Rob, I just can't do it. And then Cochran, I get you ranking him at 1. I think the internet is so hateful towards Cochran for really no reason. I rank him at 19, again, because it's his 2nd time, and I don't think it's a very strong cast. But you can't really ask for more than what he does on that season. And the whole like argument of they put all his friends on the season, it's not there. It's not a real thing.
Before we get to Cochran, I do want to talk about Boston Rob because, the internet agrees and it's unanimous. Boston Rob's cast was terrible. Boston Rob did, however, make every single decision. He ran that whole game. That's what I am holding my hat towards, because I can't sit here and say that, that cast was worse than another cast and, all that jazz. Like, Boston Rob, and I understand it's his 4th time. He's playing with children. I get that. He's Anakin Skywalker after the Order 66 going into the young Jedi's room. Like, I get that. But he effing dominates from start to finish. And it is so many Boston Rob moments that we'll remember forever. Him throwing the clue into the volcano, him winning that final immunity necklace, which is one of the most gorgeous immunity necklaces they've ever had. And you can just see, he knows he's won the whole thing. Like, it is just from start to finish, pure dominance. And yes, is it against a weak cast? For sure, but you cannot deny the dominance, and that's why I had to put him where he is. Same reason for Kim. You cannot deny the dominance. Same reason for Tom. You cannot deny the dominance. When it gets to the lower half of the list, before we break down Cochran as my number 1, I think Rachel, it's a fantastic theater. I understand if you don't believe she had a social game, she was on the outside of the votes, but this is absolutely, when it comes to the new era, that like solo cowboy victory here. And I think she does a lot more than people give her credit for. I think she runs a lot more of that season and can't be taken out. Like, I give a lot of credit to people that simply cannot be taken out. And then when it comes to Wendell, I'm looking for the exact, here it is. Hands down Survivor
Are you
says,
getting free tickets to Bryson Wen? Is that why you ranked him at 7? Is that what you're looking for here?
well, Dominic, hands down, Survivor says Dominic was more of a strategic force than Wendell. Dominic and Wendell together on Ghost Island are Boston Rob on Redemption Island. Like, there is not a soul that comes out of that season that wins more than Dominic and Wendell. The only thing that hurts Dominic and Wendell from being higher, because if Dominic wins, he's just in this same spot on the list. The only thing that stops them from going higher is that they didn't take each other out. But that is a tag team to end all tag teams. And Wendell pulls off the final victory of having Laurel on his side when she makes the deciding vote. So Wendell needs to be that high. But any other disagreements here, that big fallers from your list, like Tony, Winners at War, Rachel, Dominic, or Wendell or Natalie?
Yeah, so let me hit these quick, and I know we're almost at an hour and a half, but this is the last slide, so I guess we're good, right?
Oh yeah.
I gotta say, so I have Tony Winners at War at 9, so not far off there. So it also made my top 10. Rachel, and I'm gonna preface this with, I've only watched her season once. I have her at 36. Again, though, this is more because of the new era thing, right? Her being saved by Saul, but then also being put in that screwed position to begin with. It's like, what do I do with that information? I really like what she's able to accomplish against Andy, where she just dupes Andy. I like that she plays the shot in the dark and all that. But I do think that there's a lot of things of like Rachel needed an immunity win, or Rachel needed early on in the game. She's very lucky that they choose to go Annika instead of her. I think that Rachel could end up being higher for me in the long run when I rewatch the season, because I do like 47 more. But again, it's just I don't know what to do with these new era players aside from Kyle and D, because Kyle and D's games are so obviously dominant. And I think that Rachel's game, you can make the argument it's dominant, but there's also a lot of luck involved. And every winner has luck. I mean, Kim has luck that the strongest player on her season, other than Troyzan, is Chelsea or Sabrina. Like, that's a lot of luck right there. But you know, when I look at Rachel, it's like, I got to figure out what's luck and what's skill. And that's going to take more watches for me to get there. Wendell, I love Wendell's game. I think Wendell's a phenomenal strategic player. I have this thing of like, though, I rank Wendell always around the midpoint. So I have him at 26. I can hear an argument for top 10. It's a great social game. It's kind of like, you know, I sit here with Vesepia at 10. You have Wendell at 7. I think that those two play similar games of they're actually on the wrong side of the numbers at the merge. The edit in Ghost Island just does a terrible job of telling that story. And then they're able to overcome it and ultimately win a very close final tribal, but you're not seeing all of their game. And I think that's the thing with Wendell. Natalie Anderson cracks neck. Natalie Anderson is the most overrated winner in the history of Survivor. And here's come on. No, but here's my thing. I have Natalie Anderson at 27, so it's not even the biggest discrepancy on here. I just think that the way that the internet has latched on to Natalie Anderson as like she almost won the EW bracket, and Todd won that rightfully, which, you know, you'll learn when you watch China for the 3rd or 4th or 5th time. But like, I hate that the internet has latched on to Natalie as this phenomenal winner just because what? Well, look what she did in the Traders. I don't give a shit what she did in the Traders. I don't care what she did in the Amazing Race. And I also don't care that she makes like 2 great moves on this season. Yes, they happen at the end. Natalie is irrelevant for the pre-merge. She is just sitting there doing nothing. And then by the time she has to start playing and Jeremy goes home, it is one of the worst casts ever in terms of skill. Like if she didn't have the blood versus water twist, I don't think Natalie Anderson can win Survivor. I think that's the other thing. And then what makes me sad, Tony, and you haven't been around long enough, but this is what makes me sad. You'll get the trolls who aren't trolls, but they're saying things that are so stupid it makes them seem like they're trolling. You get the trolls who are like, yeah, well, Natalie finished 2nd on her 2nd season too, so that proves how good she is. She was the first person voted out of Winners at War, guys. She was the first person voted out. I don't care that she gets more votes than Michelle at that final tribal council. Of course, she's going to get votes more than Michelle. Michelle didn't play or see half the people who were over there. Natalie sat on a beach with them and told campfire stories for 25 days. Like, what are we talking about? So that always makes me crazy. I think that Natalie is a solid winner. I think she's fine. But I do think that people have gotten so ridiculous with the Natalie love. And it's like, well, if you don't consider her like a top 5 winner, you just don't know what you're talking about. it's not there. To me, it's not there. And I just rewatched San Juan del Sur not too long ago. Honestly, I'm not impressed by Natalie's game. There's two really good moves. It's the did you vote for who I told you to vote for, and the Alec move. Other than that, there's nothing there for me. I'm fine with you putting her at 8 because at least you have 2 women ranked above her. But I don't like that Natalie is starting to become like, oh, Parvati's the best female player ever, and Natalie's number 2. It's like, no, that's just really not true, guys.
I think winners at war aside, again, I will never account someone's second season to change my winners rankings of this is only based on the season that they played. And when it comes to Natalie, I just think she is such a effing bulldog in that season. I think she's much more active in that season than you do. And I also believe she knows pretty much around final 8, final 7, who she needs to bring to the final that will get absolutely no votes from the people around her because they're going to respect Natalie's game more. And she starts to control those players that she needs like puppets. And I, too, like Daryl, liked Natalie's revenge story. Maybe I like it a little bit too much because Daryl also comes back and says Phil is making a great case about Natalie. But I'm here for the Natalie love. There's one more person we do need to talk about, though, an hour 34 into this podcast, because when I debuted this part of the list, the comment section got very angry. Daryl said, Cochran's at number 1. I have to go. A couple of people that Boston Rob's win at 2 is good, but number 1, oh my goodness, I get that. Hands down survivor. Cochran had a great run in Caramoan. Respect him for beating Malcolm in the food eating challenge. When it comes to Cochran, and the reason I have him number 1, Phil, is, yes, it's a returning player versus new player. I'm going to throw that to the side. I'm just going off of what they had. John Cochran makes for how bad he plays in South Pacific, going 6-6 and flipping over to coach's side and ruining Aussie's tribe because of it. He knows the mistakes that he made in the South Pacific. So when he comes back for Caramoan, he is a completely changed human, and he is the godfather of this season. Every single conversation goes through Cochran. And when people start to stray from that, the Andreas of the world, that's when Cochran finds out before they can even make that step, and they cut them at the heels. Yes, that's because Don is the one feeding him all the information. Guess who got Don on his side early? He is the Don, D-O-N, of this entire island the whole entire time, and taking away the strategic element of his game, taking away the social element of his game. These top winners, to me, all have every aspect of Survivor on lock. This man wins multiple immunity challenges. And he wins some of them because he gains advantages to get these immunity challenges. When they have to do that rope thing and he only has to go a few rungs higher than everyone, that's the reason he wins. But he wins that because he earns the advantage previously. He does not make a false step, just like Boston Rob, throughout the entirety of this season. And yes, people literally go crazy and go postal on this season and have to be kicked out. There's crazy, terrible things that happen. Fans versus favorites is a much better theme for the favorites. They come in with a built-in advantage, but still, you cannot fault Cochran for the production of this season. You can just watch his gameplay, and he throws a perfect game, Phil.
Look, I get where you're coming from. He does play a perfect game. I see it. I get it. I do think that so many people hate on Cochran. I mean, one of the most popular things to do on the internet is hate Cochran. Okay. And
I hated him in South Pacific. You watch my South Pacific video. I called him one of the worst Survivor players ever. And everyone in the comments was like, you haven't seen all of it, have you? No, I have not. But then this convinced me.
Yeah, no. And what's funny though, is like, there was something, and I always get the comment of like, I'm sure it's great to always insult half of your fan base. Look, when I always say, when I know the internet, when I say the internet, I mean like the group think internet that's on the message board saying the same things over and over again. I don't mean my fans. Honestly, the people who have the group think, you can come listen to me. That's fine. I'm just saying, Cochran after South Pacific, you talk to any mother in America who watches Survivor, they all love Cochran. You go on the message boards and all the people who felt like Cochran took their role on Survivor, took their casting spot. It was just the biggest crybaby fest of all time. It's just a bunch of babies. Like, I'm sorry. And if anybody should be pissed, it should be me, because at the time I'm like 24 years old. I look very similar to Cochran. And I was nerdy. Like, I should have been the one who was pissed, not like these. It's like, who cares? Cochran gets on the game. He got a lot of hate just because, oh, he's such a super fan, but he sucks. He's Jeff's favorite. Everybody just made up this story that like Cochran wasn't a threat coming into Caramoan. And I hear this one all the time. He's a bigger threat than Corinne. He's a bigger threat than Phillip. He's a bigger threat than Brandon. He's a bigger threat than Dawn. Like, he's a bigger threat than most of that cast that he is playing with on the Favorites tribe. And everybody would say, well, it's just his friends. No, it isn't. Like, you think he's friends with Brandon Hance? I
No.
saw Cochran was at the finale for 50. He didn't have any psychopaths hanging around him who were like on trial for something. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe he did. Maybe I don't know. But like, I just feel like Cochran gets so much hate just because the internet wants to hate. And I think he came in at a tough time because social media was starting to become a thing. You know, Cagayan was really when it started to tip off in Survivor. I still think you're too high on him. But again, I'm going to revere first-time players more than second-time players. I think if your list was Kim at 1, Tom at 2, Tony Winters at War at 3, I think you have a perfect list there, or close to. I mean, obviously, it's not what I have. But I would be curious, Tony, and I know squared, generally that's a little 2 that's up by the number. So, like, I do wonder if you will go back and watch these seasons a second time, and I wonder how open-minded you will be to, like, some of your takes here, if you would move them or keep them, or how staunch you're going to be in your opinions. Because, you know, I know that if you're in the sports media world, if you say that Caleb Williams isn't a bust, you have to just constantly say that Caleb Williams isn't a bust.
Over and over again, yeah.
But like, I wonder if, like, when you do this, because that's something that I've been doing when we're doing our Patreon rewatch. I've really been trying to take my previous bias out of the case for re-ranking the seasons. And when I did the winner rankings, I tried to take out my personal preference. Some I might have overdone, like Tommy Sheehan, I probably ranked too low. But I would be curious what your list would look like after a second time, because like with movies, like with anything, I do think that there's a lot to be seen how things change from a first time to a second time, and you see a story develop. What do you still like? What are you bored with? You're always going to have your first one. I mean, I always love Australia, but I rank Australia much lower than I used to because I've realized that there's a lot of better seasons than Australia now.
Yeah. I do wonder that myself, because I do, especially when it comes to football takes, I do like to take my initial bias out. Like, every season is anew. However, that no one can say they fully take it out. And I also will say, I am the firstborn son of an Italian family from the East Coast. I'm stubborn as all hell, Phil. So for me to have an initial thought on someone, it's going to be hard to take me off of that initial thought, because I'm going to want to prove myself right rather than prove myself wrong. And on top of that, man, it took me the better part of 2025. Not to say life's hard. Like, my life, I'm having a blast over here. This is much, people do a lot more tougher things than I'm about to say. But it took me all of 2025 to watch all 50 seasons. So I don't know if I want to devote another year of my life to rewatching all 50 seasons. But maybe one day soon I will get it done. However, this is the list as I see fit at the top. And Phil, we did it, man. 1 hour and 40 breaking down all 50 winners of Survivor. I can't thank you enough, even though I made you mad about multiple times on this slide. I can't thank you enough for joining. Where can the little listeners I have come find you on a regular basis?
The little listeners you have, just send this to your Instagram, Tony, so that they know where to find us. No, so we're over on Survivor Specialist, YouTube, anywhere you find podcasts, Spotify, you know, Apple Music, all that stuff. I think we might be on iHeart. I have no idea, honestly, where we are on that side of things, on the audio. Patreon.com/The Specialist. We're always doing content. We put out like an episode pretty much 4 or 5 times a week. In season, it's even more. With Survivor 51 coming up, we do a predictions. We do a power rankings game that you can get into as a top tier patron. We also do a fantasy game you can get into as a top tier patron. So, you know, we just do like different types of things like that. We're also doing Every Season Matters for our top tier patrons. We're doing 8 episodes about every season of Survivor. We're into Heroes, Healers, Hustlers. If you join now, you can go back and listen to all the stuff that we did earlier. But yeah, otherwise, Traders coming up, Survivor coming up. That's what we'll be doing over on the channel. We're covering Surviving Barstool right now. I know nothing about Barstool, so that's it, you know. But
that's the last show we'll be covering on Survivor Squared, is Surviving Barstool. But for the listeners at home, every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, me and Bailey Buffs will be back breaking down everything in the world of Survivor and reality TV, because we too are doing a Power Rankings episode coming up very, very soon. We have a bunch of interviews coming up on the channel as well. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, help this channel grow. And I'm excited to thank you to those in the comments, man, for spending time with us here. See you next week, Tony. Exactly. Happy to have all the comments going here. You make it an interactive version of the show. So we will see you again Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific. But until then, don't get too mad at me on my rankings. It's okay. It's okay to be different on the internet, folks. It's okay.
Todd.